Hello, this is Mr. B, and I want to talk to you about dividing fractions and mixed numbers, how to do it mathematically. In our last video, we saw how to model these, so you may want to look that up and how to draw models just to understand what division is. But now, let's talk about the processes. Okay, I want to show you two strategies that mathematically you can find the answer to any division problem involving fractions. So before I do that, I want you to examine these four problems right here. We see four simple division problems and the answers next to them. Do you notice anything that's common or similar, or what do you notice about the math problem and the answer? Take a second, pause this video right here, and just say, hey, look at this math problem right here. What do you notice about that and the answer? What connection can you kind of see with those right here? So pause, think about that, and then come right back. Okay, here is one thing that a lot of kids will say. I see 5 divided by 2, and then this is in our answer right there, 5 divided by 2. We see that in all of these, in fact. If you look at the two numerators, 3 divided by 1 equals 3. And at this fraction right here, 3 can be written as a fraction. Just like that, we see the 3 and the 1 here. We see the two numerators in 7 divided by 9 right here, 7 over 9, which means 7 divided by 9. We see 5 divided by 7. We see that in our answer right here, 5 divided by 7. We also see that the denominators are the exact same, so we have common denominators, and then our answer is really just our two numerators. And that's true. So we see one strategy here. When we have common denominators, we can just divide straight across. We use the two numerators and just write them in fraction form right here. The 5 divided by the 2, or 5 over 2, which is 5 halves, which is 2 and 1/2. That's the answer to the question. 5 halves is the answer to that problem. The answer to this one down here, 3/4 divided by 1/4, is 3 over 1. The answer to 7/12 divided by 9/12 over here is 7/9. It's the two numerators written in fraction form. Pretty simple. However, we do have to have common denominators. That's it. So let's look at, that's one strategy right there. Find a common denominator and then just use your two numerators for your answer. That's it. That's very simple, very easy. And there's another way to do this as well. So let me go on to a second strategy. The second strategy, now I teach 6th grade, so when you're watching this, you may have already been exposed to this other strategy, and some teachers call it keep, change, flip, but I don't like to call it that because that's just a silly name. But we can change these or rewrite a division problem as a multiplication problem. So let's take a look at 5, 6. Okay, now that we've got those out of the way, let's rewrite this first problem as a multiplication problem instead of a division problem. To do that, we see the division problem will change into a multiplication problem, and then we will use the reciprocal of 2/6, which is 6 over 2. The reciprocal is just, some people call it the flip. You're flipping it. There is a meaning to it, all right? It's really just the number you would multiply by to equal 1. So the reciprocal is when you just kind of flip it. I kind of like to do that right there. So we have changed it from a division problem into a multiplication problem, and now we can multiply these numbers straight across. 5 times 6, and then we have 6 times 2, 30/12. 30/12 can be simplified. We can divide them both by 6. So 30 divided by 6 is 5. 12 divided by 6 is 2. And now we get the same thing we got up here, 5 halves. So multiply by the reciprocal. That is another strategy as well. We could do that one here, 7/12 times. Now what would we use for the second fraction? The reciprocal, 12 over 9. We only use the reciprocal of the second fraction, not the first. First one stays put. All right, and then we change it to multiplying by the reciprocal. You might also notice here, if you're familiar with simplifying first, that the two 12s can be simplified down to 1. But I'm going to assume that maybe you're not sure how to do that. So 7 times 12, we can multiply these. 9 times 12. And then we have to simplify this It will simplify all the way down to 7/9. So those are two strategies. Common denominators. We can change them to common denominators, or we can just multiply by the reciprocal. So let me go over a few other problems. All right, 3 1/4 divided by 3. First of all, first, we need to make sure we have mixed numbers changed into fractions. So we can only use fraction form. So 3 1/4. Remember, we're going to change this into a fraction. So 4 is our denominator. We multiply 4 times 3. We add the 1, and we get 13 as our numerator. So this math problem is 13 divided by 3. We also want a fraction. Fraction. No whole numbers, no mixed numbers. We only want two fractions. So our first task is to change everything into fraction form. So here we have fraction divided by fractions. And I'm going to, for these first two, I'm going to do common denominators. So I'm going to change this problem into fourths. So I'm going to keep the 4 and change 3/1 into fourths. So I want 4 to be the denominator. I'm going to multiply by 4. So 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. And so this is my math problem. Now I have common denominators, and my answer is right up there. My two numerators, 13/12. And then that's a mixed number, which I changed to 1 and 1/12. Right there. So I got common, first of all, I got fractions. Always do that. And then I have a common denominator. And then I look at my numerators. Let's do the same thing for number 2. First of all, we need two fractions. So 20, I'm doing this. 5 times 4. I'm going to add the 4 here. So 24/5 is my fraction. And then let's do that on this one. We're kind of going around like this. 3 times 5 plus 1 is 16 thirds. So I notice we have a 5 and a 3 denominator. Let's change those so that we have the same denominator. All right, so I'm going to put an equal sign here. What will we have? What denominator does 5 and 3 both change into? 15. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. So let's start off with 24 thirds. Let me get a little space up here. I'm going to do this just so you can kind of see, if you're wondering how I am changing this. I'm changing 24/5 into 15. So 5 times 3, I know that'll be 15. So 24 times 3, now I'm going to have to work this one out a little bit here, but you'll end up with 72. So we had to do a little bit of calculation right there. Now let's do the same thing with 16 thirds. I'm going to say 16 thirds. I want to change that into 15ths. So in this time I'm multiplying by 5, 3 times 5, and then 16 times 5. I'll get 80. 80/15. So 72 divided by 80/15. Well, now we have our common denominators, and we just look at our two numerators. I see a 72, and I see an 80. So 72 and 80. Now we can simplify this. I'm going to divide both of these by 8, and I'm going to get 9 and 10. So my answer is 9. Let's take a look at, move this up. Let's take a look at these two. I'm going to use the other method, which is multiplying by the reciprocal. First of all, we always need fractions. So I'm going to go around here and do 9/2. Now I want to multiply, and I don't want 7 thirds. I want the reciprocal, so I'm going to do this little flip right there. 3/7. That's all we need to do. Now we need to multiply. So 9 times 3 is 27. And 2 times 7 is 14. We can change that into a mixed number. How many times will 14 go into 27? 1 time, and then there are 13 left over. So that is just our division problem. We do 27. This is what I did here. 27 divided by 14. How many full groups of 14 are in 27? There's one full group. So take that away, and you end up with 13 left over. That's our numerator, 13/14. That's our answer. We're done. How about number 4? Remember, we need fractions, so I'm going to make this a fraction, 3/1. So really, this is the math problem, 3/1 divided by 3/4. Now I want to multiply by the reciprocal, so I'm going to say 3/1 times 4/3. Okay, now we can multiply. 3 times 4, 1 times 3. So I end up with 12 thirds. So let's change that to a mixed number. Well, 12 divided by 3 is 4 whole groups, and there's nothing left over. So just 4 is our answer, and that is our answer to this problem. All right, so those are the two strategies, two very good strategies for dividing fractions. The common denominator, you can do that, or you can multiply by the reciprocal. Both of them, you have to have fractions, not whole numbers. You want to change those, change your whole numbers. You want to change your mixed numbers, so you have a fraction divided by fraction. All right, I hope you all have a good day. Thank you for tuning in.